Well, hello. Welcome to episode number 9 of How to HR. How are you? Hope you're all having a fabulous week. For those who are joining us for the first time here on How to HR, welcome. So How to HR is our weekly video series that we distribute live here on Facebook, designed to give you bite-sized tips of how to do something when it comes to your team and your people. If you don't know me, hello, I'm Kristy-Lee. I'm the director and founder of a consultancy business known as the Footprint Group. I'm the host of the People Powered Business podcast, and I am the founder of the Your People Powered Business membership community. Super excited to be here for you. I love How to HR because it's always just quick bite-sized information that hopefully can get you unstuck or give you some ideas and inspiration when it comes to your team. Now, if you're joining us live, feel free at any point to add questions or comments in the chat box. I do come to you live via StreamYard, so you will need to give StreamYard access to use your name. Otherwise, I'll just see Facebook user, which is totally fine too. But at any point, feel free to chime in, add comments, ask questions. And if there's a topic that you would love me to cover in a future How to HR, then let me know here in the comments, because then I can just get that done straight away for you in one of our upcoming episodes. So as I said, today is episode 9 of How to HR, and today we're talking about when and why you might need to get some HR help for your business. Because I know for many of you, you're uncertain as to at what point do you get help, at what point do you get an internal HR resource, possibly you're wondering, do you actually need help? And that's just what we're going to chat through today. So some of those factors that might contribute to that. You know, the first thing that I want to share with you is that every business is different. So what is working for one business or important for one business, the point at which they choose to get some HR help or support or guidance does not necessarily have to be the same for you. As an example, I've worked with a couple of very large businesses as an external HR consultant where I was effectively their HR manager. These are businesses that had upwards of 100 employees. Now, in most cases, businesses with more than 50 to 100 employees would tell you that maybe you should be getting an internal HR resource. Some very different reasons these businesses did not want to go down that pathway at that time. They both had no HR involvement at all. One of them had grown very significantly, very quickly, so just wasn't sure how HR fitted in with what they needed and whether they actually needed that resource. One didn't want HR in place because they didn't want HR keeping them accountable or compliant, and that's not a lie. One of the directors of that business looked me dead in the face and said, I'd rather pay an unfair dismissal claim than actually do this properly. So they weren't particularly keen to have a HR person on site constantly telling them they're doing things that are non-compliant. On the other hand, the other business just didn't understand HR. They didn't know where it kind of fit into the ecosystem and how it could add value at a really strategic and high level position. So for different reasons, those businesses chose external when they needed HR help. And for those businesses, it was an ongoing commitment. But for many businesses, it's not. It's about, I just need help to solve one problem, one thing that I need help with. For example, just this week, in a Facebook group, someone asked who could help them with HR. Many people put their hand up. That person just wants help with one thing. They've booked a call. They'll probably get unstuck in that call and move along. And they don't want necessarily, or perhaps even need, ongoing HR support. So at what point do you consider that you might need HR help? What are some of the reasons people do that? The main reason people think, oh my God, I need help, is when they've got a problem. It's usually the first interaction they'll have with any kind of HR assistance, whether it be internal or external. It's due to a problem or a pain point. The ones I most commonly see are, I need to terminate an employee, I've got an unfair dismissal claim on my desk, or I've got a problem employee and I don't know how to manage them or how to deal with them or how to exit them. They're the 3 most common things that someone might initiate a contact with HR for. But it's not the only reason. One of the other reasons you really want to consider when and how you want to get HR support is HR is a very technical and litigious area. It's its own piece of legislation. I see this exactly the same as using an accountant in your business. You get support from an accountant because they're an expert in tax law. Makes total sense. Most businesses do it. HR law is just another piece of law. If you've got employees in your business, you're bound by HR law. So in just the same way as you get advice from your accountant, get advice from a HR practitioner in relation to your compliance with that law. It is a litigious area. Just by owning a business that employs staff, you are at risk of fines. and penalties and breaches, and they're costly. So you want to make sure that your business is protected, and tapping into some HR help might be one of the key reasons to do that. Aside from putting out fires and dealing with issues, another reason you might choose to get HR support in your business is to avoid getting to that point, to avoid getting to the point where you've got problems. So you might be more proactive in saying, I want to get some support here to make sure I'm doing it right, to make sure I'm not at risk, to make sure I don't end up with a headache with one of my employees. And I think the thing to remember too is sometimes we lean on the other professionals that we have around us, expecting them to be experts on HR. And it's really not fair on them. Your accountant is not a HR expert because they haven't studied the HR law. Your bookkeeper is not a HR expert for the same reasons. Yet often we lean on those people, expecting them to have that knowledge, and they just simply don't. It's actually quite an unfair expectation that we place on them. And I work really closely with lots of great accountants and bookkeepers, and we work off each other. They'll deal with the tax law stuff, I'll deal with the HR stuff, and it can work really beautifully together. But just like anything else in your business, if you're seeking guidance because you want to make sure things are done right and compliant, HR is just one of those things that you might want to get help for. So there's lots of reasons why you'd get help. You've either got a problem, you want to avoid a problem, or you're getting to a certain stage and you're getting to a certain tipping point. I think one thing you so often see is that some employers want to get a HR help of some sort because they don't want to deal with people. They don't like the leadership part. They don't want to have to manage people. That is not something that you want to get HR help for. You need a good leader in your business. And if it's not you, hire someone else that is. Whether it's an operations manager, a general manager, a team leader, depending on the size of your business, if leading people is the thing you hate the most and you don't want to do it and you actively avoid it, hire someone else into your business that does, because someone that is in HR can give you all the tools and guidance on how to be a great leader, but they can't be that person for you. It's not their role in the business, and it's not going to work effectively for your business. So that's one of your reasons I encourage you down actually a whole different pathway. So the tipping point for many businesses comes to a question of what sort of HR help do I need, and at what point do I hire someone internally to take care of this for me? And as I said at the beginning, there's no magic formula, there's no right or wrong. Every business is different. But some businesses are relying on external HR entirely up to 200 staff. Others could never ever manage it that way. There's a common number of employees that some people suggest you start looking at an internal HR person, and that is 50 employees. Now, for many of you, that could be the case, but here's what I'd say around that, because every business is different. If your business has a very complex HR, industrial relations nature, then 50 employees is probably the number. Now, when I say complex, what I mean is, do you have like 3 to 4 different modern awards you're trying to work under? Do you have lots of change in your workforce? So you might have a high volume of casuals coming in and out. You might have a high churn rate in your position and constant change, and lots of different positions. So not just 10 of the one position, but multiple different positions in your business. If you're dealing with that level of complexity, then internal HR might be where you're heading. I think otherwise, if your business is quite stable, you don't have a high churn rate, you don't have lots of different casuals coming in and out, and you don't have multiple awards operating, upwards of 3. It's pretty common. Most businesses will have at least 2 or 3, but when you're getting beyond that, it can get pretty, scary. If that's not you, if you're more stable, if things are less complex, if you don't have a high churn rate and you have pretty good leadership in your business, you won't need internal HR at 50 staff. You will be closer to 100 before you actually need that resource. But the thing is, when you bring an internal HR resource into your business, you've got to have enough for them to do. Because if you don't, they end up doing other things that are irrelevant, not a great use of their skill set, sometimes a total distraction. So you must have enough for them to do, and you want to really understand why you want internal HR. So I gave you the example of a couple of big businesses that I've worked with. Now, at one point, one of those businesses, the one that had grown really rapidly, they had 100 plus employees plus another 150 odd contractors. So they were a big team. And it got to the point where outsourced HR was not fitting for them because they realized the value of HR at a strategic level. Now, when I started working with that business, they couldn't see it. It took 2 years to get to that point. But ultimately, the directors realized that actually we need HR to be a seat at the table in the strategic decision-making of this business. They needed a very senior, very capable HR manager And that's what we went and did and found for them. They needed that because of what they wanted to get out of the HR resource. Now, if you want to get out of the HR resource someone to just prepare all the documents, not make any strategic decision making, just to do the employment documents, keep an eye on things, help out if you've got a staffing issue, you don't need a senior HR manager. You need a HR administrator or a HR coordinator. So you want to be really clear about the purpose for bringing HR internally and what you want this person to do. And you want to think about, have you actually got enough work for them? Because it would be nice, of course, to have a HR person sitting in the office next to you for you to call on when you needed them. But if you only need to do that once a week, what's going to happen? They're going to get bored. They're going to be disengaged. They'll probably get involved in gossip, but they don't need to. So it wouldn't be the ideal fit in that particular case. But 50 is a common tipping point where somewhere between 50 and 100, you're often starting that search for an internal HR resource. And an internal HR resource is not an administration person. They might do some admin, but they're experienced, they're skilled, they're qualified, tap into their unique knowledge. The other challenge you've got if your internal resource doesn't have enough to do is they start looking for things to do because they want to use all these skills that they've got, and they might put in place things that actually you don't need and are a total waste of time, which wouldn't be ideal for you. Now, some of the benefits of having internal HR, of course, are that they are there. When something goes wrong, when there's a problem, it's literally a phone call to their office, a walk around to their office, and they're there to solve the problem. So that can be very handy, no doubt. The downside, though, is that you're creating a team where you want people to get along. Yeah, you want everyone to get along in the business. And particularly at that administrator, coordinator kind of HR level, they want to get along with everyone in the team. They want to be their friends. And unfortunately, every single time, it results in them not being impartial. Because how difficult is it for them to sit down and have a performance discussion with someone that's their best friend that they see at lunchtime every day or that they have drinks with on a Friday afternoon? It becomes really difficult for them to separate and to do a great job from an impartial perspective. So that can be one of the challenges and pitfalls. Now, if you're not at a size to want or need an internal HR resource, at some point you might need to tap into some external support. And this can come in so many different ways. You've got your fairly traditional HR consultant model. And some of you, that's the work I do for you. I'm there to consult with you, to help you solve the problems, to help you strategize and come up with solutions. And that's what a good HR consultant does. For some of you, you might actually not want consulting advice. What you might want is a software system or a program to systemize and make easier the HR documentation, and somebody to just get templates and forms, but you're happy to manage it all yourself. And there are loads of suppliers out there that do a great job of that. If you're sourcing one of these providers that can give you the documents and the templates and use as a software to store things, it's called a HR information system. The one thing I would encourage you to do is make sure that whoever you choose, and there's lots of options, that they're backed by a legal team, because that will make sure that the documents they're producing are compliant. So just watch out for that there. Now, you might also have a more consistent approach to your external HR. You might have someone kind of on retainer as your outsourced HR team or outsourced HR manager or outsourced HR resource. And you might just give that person's contact details to your whole team and say, this is our HR person. They're just remote or they're external. Totally possible. And that's a service lots of businesses, including our business, offer. So that's another option as well. Another alternative, and this is the newest kid on the block, I guess you'd say, is having a HR membership or subscription service. And that's exactly what your people-powered business is. And those of you who are interested in that, please know that doors open next week for a strictly limited time. Just had to get that in. So this is a new model. There's very few options of this available in Australia, but there are a few. And this is where you pay a lower monthly fee to have access to knowledge, information, resources, advice, coaching, guidance, and all of those things. Now, when you're paying several $100s for a HR consultant, that's the average price these days, or you can pay a lower monthly subscription. Many of you may think that that's a better option, to have the security of knowing that you get advice as part of that, or you get documentation as part of that. And that's the newest alternative. And I think it's a really exciting alternative to have in the marketplace. And as I said, there are a few providers out there. We're not the only one, but I think it's a great option if you want some HR support, you want some peace of mind, but you don't want to be having to pay through the nose every time you pick up the phone, or you Because what I hate seeing is businesses that are reluctant to come forward and ask help because they're worried about how much it's going to cost, but it ends up costing them more because they don't get the help in the first place. So a membership or subscription model could be a great option if that's the kind of thing you're looking for. So there's lots of pros and cons to all these things, and it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's about finding what's right for your business. But if you employ people in your business, if you employ employees, then you are bound by the Fair Work Act and all of the legislation that surrounds that. And for that reason, at various times in your business, you are going to want and need to tap into some HR support, some HR help to make sure you're getting it right, to make sure you're avoiding the costly mistakes, to make sure that you're not going to put yourself and your business in any risk, any danger of any fines or anything else, and more proactively to help you build amazing teams that are going to drive your business performance. Engaged teams to deliver productivity and profitability. So that's a very brief overview as to why and when and how you might want to think about getting HR help into your business. And that is it for episode 9 of How to HR. If you're catching the replay, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. And as I said, if you've got other topics around HR that you would love me to address in a future How to HR episode, let me know, pop a comment below, and I would love to look after that for you. In the meantime, have a fabulous week, and I'll see you next week for episode 10 of How to HR.